everyone, it's Kelly from Kelly's Bead Boutique. So I've been making and teaching how to make jewelry for a very long time. And one of the comments that I always hear is, you make it look so easy. Well, I think it is, and I want to show you just how easy it can be. So I'm going to take some simple parts and some simple techniques and put them together and teach you how to make your very own jewelry. If you want to see what I'm making today, come and join me. Okay, so to make our piece today, we're going to be using some of our beading chain and some ball chain. And I'm going to be using some 22 gauge vintage bronze wire. I have some tiny little antique bronze beads. I have some little cord ends that I'm going to be using on the end of this chain. I also have a couple of these cord ends for the ball chain, and I will explain how these ones work at the end. I've got a couple different jump rings. I've got a decorative bead, a lobster clasp, and a little pendant. And for tools, we're going to be using our 4 basic tools. We've got our cutters, our round nose pliers, our bent chain nose pliers, and our chain nose pliers. So let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is make my little focal point. So I'm going to cut off some of my wire. And I'm going to name this one Bonnie, after my mother. My mom tends to like animal prints. So even though this isn't really a style of necklace that she would wear, I do think that it looks like, it reminds me of my mom, so that's why I'm naming it Bonnie. So we're going to go down about 1.5 inches or so on here, and I'm going to make sure that wire's nice and straight, and then I'm going to use my thumb and bend away, creating a nice sharp 90-degree angle. Now I'm going to come in with my round nose pliers, and I do want to go up towards the top of them because I need a little bit bigger loop to go over that end there. So I'm going to go up and over and push with my thumb and go straight down. Now I'm going to open my pliers, rotate them, and then close up, and then pull that right to the back. And then I just adjust by rotating my right hand a little bit until I get something that looks like that. Now, I've got so many tools in the way here. And now I'm going to go through that hole, and I find that it's best to just try to open that up with your fingernail. And we're going to flip that over so that the short wire is on the top and your long wire is off to the left, and then I'm going to wrap that up. So I just wrap around nice and tight. I want to make sure that these first few wraps are nice and neat, and then I'm going to work my way back to get a bulky sort of look. If yours aren't neat, don't worry about it. And you know, the bulky, messy wrap thing is all the rage, so don't worry about it anymore. When I first started, everything had to be perfect. And well, it didn't have to be, but that's the way that I chose to interpret it, was to make everything perfect. So now, if you're less than perfect, it's actually in style. So there you go. Okay, so that's how we're starting. And now I'm going to put on my decorative bead. And now I want to make sure when I do my loop that this loop is exactly the same direction as the first one. So I am going to hold it this way so that I can see which way the loop is going. And then I'm just going to pull straight over, and now I know both my loops are going to go in the same direction. So I'm going to repeat with my round nose pliers. I'm going to come in here and go back to about the same spot. Now you can see I can't get in there nice and close because I didn't make a neck on here. And that's because of the style of wrap that we're doing. But don't worry about it, we're going to fix that up. So we're going to follow the same as last time, go up and over and straight down, open those pliers, rotate them so they're parallel to the table, pull that straight to the back. And now I'm just going to move these out of the way so that I can show you what I mean here. So you can see that that one's way over there. So all I'm going to do is just keep rotating it until it comes directly on top there. And you'll notice that this little arm goes way out of the way. Well, don't worry about it. We'll just kind of boss that around. And you can see that's exactly what we wanted there. So now I'm going to go back to my chain nose pliers and wrap that up. And we're going to just go down a couple times and then work our way back up. And then I'm going to trim that off. Always use the flush side of your cutters. Give that a little trim. And then we're going to make sure that we've got that little burr tucked in. And I can see it kind of poking out there. So I'm just going to give it just a tiny little squish. Now this is only 22 gauge wire, so it's a little bit on the smaller side or thinner side. So you don't want to push too hard because you can damage what you just made. So there we go. That's what our completed pendant looks like. Okay, so now I'm going to take my ball chain and I'm going to run it through the loop of that pendant. And then I'm going to put my endings on. So what I want to do is take these cord ends. You can see they're sort of sideways. Try to get that in a better position for you so that the loops is at the top and they open to the side, and that it makes it easy to finish off these ball chains. You just put the ball chain end in there. I know that my fingers were completely in the way, but I'll fix it up in the next one. And you just close it tight. You cannot get any easier. So let's see if I can show you without my big fingers in the way. So we're just going to take that end and pop it in there like that and tighten it up. There you go. You cannot get any more simple than that. And that is a really great way to end these off. Now you could just leave a necklace like that with just our ball chain and add some of the endings on there, but we're going to add one more layer. So now we're going to use some of this beading chain. And the first thing I'm going to do, so that I don't forget, because you know I tend to forget things these days, is to put on the beads that I am working with. So I'm going to slip those on there. And I'm going to move this out of the way. All right. So, and I don't think I've mentioned that I did not create this necklace. I mean, I'm creating it now, but this was designed by Lori, who works for me. She's very creative and comes up with all kinds of fabulous things, and she lovingly lets me use them because, you know, I just can't come up with everything. So thank you, Lori, for coming up with this super cute necklace. Okay. So these can be a little challenging, so we'll make sure to give you an extra one in your kit if you should buy one, because they don't always work on the first go. So you sort of have to, you know, hold your tongue the right way and hope for the best. And they do hold nicely, but you really have to be mindful of how you're getting it in there. So you can see that I've got my chain coming off on my left hand here, and I'm resting the end of this on the end of my finger, because you kind of need 3 hands, but you know, we didn't get that. So what I'm going to do is just use that as a little bit of a brace. So I don't want to have my chain coming out the end, but I want to make sure it's fully inside. And I do believe when Lori makes these, she puts a little dab of glue in there. So what you could do, if you're really nervous about making these, I would take a little drop of GS Hypo and run it through the channel, place your chain inside there, and then let it dry. And then go back and crimp these ends. And that might actually create a little more success for most people, because even I, who've been making jewelry forever, find that these can be very challenging. So, you know, just play around with them a little bit, but you may want to use the little bit of a glue trick, because I'm pretty sure that's what Lori does. Okay, so I've got that all situated so that I can see what I'm doing. So what I'm trying to do is create a bit of a tent. So what you can do is come from below here, and then just kind of come across the top. So you can see that it's kind of created like a little tent. It's got a little bit of a peak. And once you get that in there, make sure it's all nice and even across the top. Then I'm going to come right on top of it. And this is where it takes a little bit of finagling, because you want to make sure your chain doesn't pop out. So I push my chain up. You can see that, I don't know if you can, I'm going to grab hold of this end there so that you can see. I'm pushing my chain up there. I want to make sure that it's up far enough before I start this, because it can easily slip down. So now I'm going to come in on top, and this is where it gets very challenging, and a few swear words have been said, I'm sure. So I want to now push down on top of that, and basically I'm just scrunching it. That's my technical term for the day, because you guys know how I love to make up words for making jewelry. So I am putting a lot of pressure on there. I want to get that in there nice and tight. And again, if this makes you nervous, then just do the glue thing, and then when you squish down, you don't have to be so bossy with it. But now that's not going anywhere. It's nice and tight. So I'm going to repeat on the other side. So take your chain, line it up in that channel of that little crimp, so you can just kind of see it on the top. Now come out from underneath and just kind of start to close that. So creating like a little tent, and I'm going to get that nice on top. So that's the look we're going for. Then I'm going to make sure that that chain is in there. I push it up just before I crimp down. I said crump again. Why am I doing that? I did that on one of my last videos and I laughed myself silly. So you're going to crimp this down nice and tight. So don't come down and crimp on the chain, because you could snap this chain. So it's delicate, but yet it's sturdy. It's kind of one of those cool things. So just keep working along, and then that does not come off. Nice and tight. Okay, so we've created our 2 lengths of our chains. So now we're going to put them together. Now this is a fully reversible necklace, so it doesn't really matter which side you put anything on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start attaching it. Okay, so I'm going to take one of my 6mm jump rings, so the little bit bigger one, and I'm going to open that up and I'm going to run it through the end of this bead tip, and then I'm going to run it through the end of this crimp end, and I'm going to do that up nice and tight. Now I'm going to take one of my small jump rings and open that up and run it through the end of that last one that we just opened up, and then I'm going to put my lobster clasp on. So make sure this is nice and tight. So that's how it is on one end, and then on the other end I'm going to repeat. I'm going to use my 6mm jump ring, and this just gives us a little bit more room to maneuver a few things in there than those small ones. And then I'm going to tighten that up. And now I'm going to take one more of my small jump rings and run it through the end, and then I'm going to put a closed ring on there. I find it much easier to do up our necklaces if we have our closed jump ring. You can see that that goes in there so nicely with having that closed end on there, and it just completes the necklace and makes it look really nice and finished. So I'm going to put this on a mannequin because it looks a whole lot nicer than laying on a flat surface, and I'll show you what the completed necklace looks like. So there you go, there's the completed necklace. I love how this one looks like 2 separate necklaces, but they're attached at the back, so that means that it won't turn around on you and get all tangled up. So thank you so much, Lori, for creating this really cute little design. I really love it, and it was easy for me just to replicate. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure to give me a like, leave me a comment. I love to hear from everybody, and if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please make sure that you do so. I want to thank you so much for watching, and we will see you on the next one.